Welcome to the Siebel upgrade workshop. This is the first chapter and we are starting with an overview of topics related to upgrading Siebel CRM to the latest version. So in this workshop we will have an introduction to the paths available to upgrade your Siebel application. We're going to discuss the technical foundation of a Siebel upgrade, and we will also provide hands-on experience in the form of videos following a real-time upgrade of a development and production environment. We provide a workshop-style learning experience. So we start into this workshop with an overview of Siebel 2020, which is at the time of this recording the current Siebel CRM version. And if you come from any version prior to Siebel IP17, you have to prepare yourself for a series of changes, including a new release model of Oracle for delivering updates, the continuous release model, and also a lot of architectural changes that you need to manage when you upgrade from, let's say, Siebel 15 to Siebel 2020. We will briefly cover the concept of Siebel web tools and workspaces, just to give you an idea what, as a developer, you have to expect when you open your new toolkit in after the upgrade of a development environment. So the continuous release model has been introduced by Oracle in spring 2018, when Siebel 17 was on the market for almost a year. And Siebel 17 started as an innovation pack, 17.0, until 18.5 was named as IP17. And beginning that continuous release model, Oracle decided to just ship monthly updates on top of 17.0 instead of limiting the number of updates to, let's say, 1.5 year worth, like it was in Siebel 16 or 15, as you can see by the blue bars, and requiring an immense upgrade effort in the area of months or even years to upgrade from, let's say, Siebel 15.18 to Siebel 17. So if you are on any version prior to Siebel 17, you are probably stuck at the latest available patch set, which is either .18 or .19, depending on your Siebel version. And if you want to go from that version to the current Siebel 20.x, at the time of recording, this is 20.1, but it could be anything year.month later. So you simply install the latest Siebel version and then run the upgrade one more time, so to speak, and then just receive monthly updates from Oracle, staying current on the release, not requiring any high effort upgrade process. So that is the current state as at the time of this recording. And of course, it's be taken with a grain of salt because decisions are made outside of this presentation. Let's briefly talk about the key architectural changes introduced in IP17. So these are around if you are installing any version later than IP17. And first and foremost, on the web tier, the Siebel web server extension, the SWSE, and the combination with third-party web server is replaced by software from Oracle called the application interface, which is a Java program running on an open source Apache Tomcat server. The next replacement is the Siebel Management Console, a browser-based interface which replaces most of the configuration wizards, those Java programs that you use to create your enterprise and register Siebel servers and so on. With the exception of the database configuration wizard, which is still around and which is vital to the upgrade. The most prominent and widely discussed change is the replacement of the proprietary cbns.dat file, the enterprise configuration store managed by the gateway name server. And this is replaced by the open source Apache Zookeeper. The gateway name server still exists to wrap around Zookeeper to manage it and communicate with it. So anything that you stored in Siebel in previous versions is now in a Zookeeper instance, including the web server SWSE configuration files, EAP, CFG, and LB-config. Also, we experience during installation time already that HTTPS/TLS is now enforced. So make sure your security experts have the certificates for all the machines involved in an enterprise ready and packaged in certificate key stores, which are required at installation time. So this is a big issue, has impacted some early projects. Also, the Siebel native load balancing, which was available before as an option, is now always on. So you don't need to configure it. You don't need an LB config file. The application interface takes care of load balancing automatically. In the blue box, you see the obsolete stuff that is replaced by something but is no longer around. So you will notice that it's mostly file-based stuff that is no longer around. First and foremost, the SRF, the Siebel repository file, is no longer available and no longer used in IP17 or higher. The replacement is database tables, the runtime repository tables, which now store the compiled information of the designed repository. So your applets and business components and whatnot, they are now stored in tables. These are consumed by the server components and the developer web client, etc. Also gone are the web template files. So the SWT files, especially during an upgrade, you need to take care that your custom SWT files are migrated into the database again, so that they're now stored in the database. We already mentioned the web server extension, third-party web server, which is obsolete, the Siebel.stat file, and eapps.cfg and lbconfig.txt. Let's compare the architecture of IP16 and earlier versus IP17 and later. So the big change you see happens on the web tier, where again we have a third-party web server and a web server extension from Oracle in IP16 and earlier, replaced by a new web tier driven by the so-called AI Tomcat, so an Apache Tomcat hosting the application interface and also hosting other applications, the SMC, the Siebel Management Console, and the new Siebel Migration Application, or SMA. There is also a Tomcat on any other machine that hosts Siebel Gateway or Siebel Server software, which we refer to as the SES Tomcat because it hosts different programs such as the Cloud Gateway or Config Agent. The Gateway name server is now renamed to Gateway Registry, and the storage is no longer a proprietary text file but Apache Zookeeper. So it's the same concept of wrapping around a service around the storage. The Siebel servers remain unchanged per se, so you still have your servers, parameters, components, and so forth, and multiple Siebel servers make up a Siebel enterprise. What about web tools? Web tools is a new Siebel web application, so driven by a separate object manager that is available only on design repository databases, so to speak, development environments. It provides the same read and write access to repository objects as Siebel tools, and it is built by Oracle to emulate and subsequently in the future replace Siebel tools. So Oracle is working and announcing plans to reach parity of web tools and Siebel tools sometime within the next year until end of 2020. At the time of this recording, this is the state of information. Siebel Web Tools is not fully necessary for a developer unless you want to do stuff that Siebel tools cannot do. And at the moment, This is the editing of web templates plus the graphical editing of applets and views in what is now a browser-based layout editor. You still need Siebel tools for most complex development tasks, such as running wizards to generate integration objects or make schema changes or use workflow editors. So it's a time of change, and the current state is that you will need both Siebel tools and Siebel web tools to finish the work that is not only required during an upgrade project to fix broken things, but also after the upgrade to continue with the development. And also for developers, workspaces is a topic that you need to wrap your head around. Workspaces are now mandatory in IP17. They have been optional in IP16 and replace the local database. So no longer would you have to work with a local Oracle XE or Sybase database and generate that, but you simply log into the server, and when you want to make changes, you create a developer workspace, and inside that workspace you make your changes, test your changes, and you can then deliver upstream to the next upper workspace, which could be an integration workspace holding a full release container, or the so-called main workspace branch, which represents production. This change has come in effort of Oracle to support continuous integration, continuous delivery paradigms, provide more agility for developer teams, and workspaces support full CI/CD pipelines for versioning, rebasing, merging, difference analysis, and delivery of changes, not just inside dev, but also to test or production environments. So after this overview of Siebel 2020, we start with the Siebel upgrade overview proper. So we're going to describe the upgrade path, going to describe the flow of an upgrade process and understand the steps of it. We describe the results of the automated steps of the process. We describe the level of effort for the manual steps, and we're going to learn about some utilities and tools that are available to assist us in a Siebel upgrade. So this is information from the Siebel database upgrade guide in Bookshelf. And here we see that you can upgrade from any old version, literally even before 7.8 to the latest Siebel, which means if you want to go from 7.5.3, let's say, to Siebel 20.5 available in May 2020, then you would have to do a full upgrade, and it would be two-step. So you would have to do two upgrades, one to 8.1.1 and then from 8.1.1 to 20.x, which is doable, but of course a lot of effort. You see that the closer you get to the modern Siebel versions, you have the choice between full upgrade or the simpler, faster, incremental repository merge, which we will focus on in this training because it's the most likely scenario that you are somewhere between 8.1.1 and Siebel 16, which is the majority of customers. You are running the upgrade several times because you have multiple environments or enterprises. You sure have a development environment which you upgrade first before any test or production environments, and the upgrade of a development environment is not just upgrading the database schema, but also the notorious repository merge to produce a new customer repository, which will subsequently become the Siebel repository you deliver then to the test or production environment during the test and production upgrade. The duration of a development environment upgrade is measured in weeks or months. So, and it fully correlates with the amount and complexity of customization that you did. So if you have never done an upgrade before, you would have to thoroughly analyze all the effort you did over the past years to customize your Siebel environment, and then take a fraction of that, percentage of that, and it will drive the effort necessary to complete the upgrade to a fully functional production environment. The real test and production environments are using the information produced in the development upgrade, as most notable the repository which is exported and the schema information, to drive a process that is measured in hours or only a few days at most. Typically, a weekend is reserved for that effort to just import that new repository, upgrade the schema, and then complete with some tests. So these test and production upgrades are different in such they use and build upon the development upgrade. And before you even start thinking about taking a copy of your development database and upgrading that and then getting started, it is a best practice to actually take a copy of that database, but use it only for fact-finding as a sandbox or a preparation environment to prepare the team for the real-life upgrade. And that is a good thing, and you should invest that time. It's time well spent to learn about the new Siebel features, to learn about how the process goes, to weed out any kinks or issues first before you start on the real thing. So here's an overview of the three typical types of environments you have in Siebel. You have on the left-hand side, number one, the development database, of course, topped with a server machine which you use for the development enterprise. And you would start with a copy of that development database. Always take a copy, or at least to make sure you have a good backup and restore process in place. You install the latest Siebel software, that is 20.x in our workshop terminology. And you use that software not to run a Siebel enterprise, not possible because the database is not a Siebel 20 schema, but you use the database configuration wizard and upgrade wizard of that Siebel 20.x version to run the upgrade process against the database. And the subsequent output is the schema DDL file and the customer repository .dat file, which is depicted in the image. And this needs to be moved. These two files move to another machine where Siebel 20 installation awaits to run the test/production style upgrade against a copy of the maybe first in a series of test databases. These test upgrades actually are tests of the real upgrade. So the final upgrade is then, the goal is to learn a lot during those test upgrade to make the real production upgrade as smooth as possible. So you can imagine multiple test environments being upgraded here, the final one being as close to production as possible, or even a copy of the production database to obtain exact figures in terms of runtime. How long does each process step run? What are the issues? And prepare for these issues to have a very smooth upgrade weekend on production. So the final upgrade is, with all the learnings from the test upgrade, executed against a copy of the production database. It's paramount to have a copy of production side by side with the real original database to be able, in case of any events, to switch back to the old production in no time to be on the safe side. So prepare for this very well. This diagram shows us the flow of a development upgrade process. Please note the box that your upgrade may require additional steps or it may look different, but this is a usual scenario where you start with a planning phase where you plan the steps ahead, as we just discussed, which environments, which databases to copy, which parameters to deploy. And the system administrator, or DBA, run some pre-upgrade tasks against the copy of the development database, for example. And then you run the upgrade wizard, the upgrade database schema, followed by the repository merge. You see the yellow box depicting that in an IRM scenario, the incremental repository merge is a fast track scenario. So these two steps, upgrade database schema and repository merge, are actually combined in a single series of steps executed by the upgrade wizard. Then follows a phase where you try to produce a valid repository with the custom schema upgrade, followed by some post-upgrade tasks to bring the database back into a normal mode. So a group of developers can start working on what is known as the post-merge configuration. This is mostly manual steps to actually fix things that broke during the upgrade, such as objects deprecated by Oracle, replacing them, fixing scripts, migrating from browser script to OpenUI. So there could be a variety of tasks in the time range of weeks or months to produce a valid Siebel repository that you really want to deploy to test or production later. And of course, there's a lot of testing in that phase, not just at the end of the process, as the diagram might make you believe. So a lot of steps, and also notice that Siebel tools work, or web tools work for that matter, is involved here. And now let's compare this to a process flow of a production or test upgrade, where you have a planning phase and you prepare the system, but you strive to have a tiny window just where you have a downtime. So typically a weekend, but maybe even less than that. So there's an optional step available from the upgrade wizard to apply any additive schema changes while the system is still running, which means creating those additional tables and columns and maybe index changes during windows you decide upon. So let's say overnight when there's less stress on the system. And so produce the schema information before you actually start the downtime window. During the downtime, the upgrade wizard performs the production upgrade in one step, importing the repository produced in development and applying any delta schema changes that might be left not being done in the optional green apply additive schema changes step here. Then, of course, you bring back the database to a normal operation status for multiple users and processes, and go into a test phase where you run smoke tests or any other tests of the sort, just to prove that the system is stable, test your interfaces, etc. And then you go live eventually with the test or the final production environment in the new Siebel version. Let's talk a little bit about planning. So you need to consider your upgrade from any older version before IP17 to current versions such as 20.x a project. It's a project where you don't do anything else but upgrade. And of course, a project needs planning. The database upgrade guide in Siebel Bookshelf can help you with that planning effort to identify necessary steps or identify steps that you can skip because they don't apply to your system. And again, your level of customization determines the complexity and duration of that project. So if you have no customization, be prepared that it's very fast, but it's very unlikely that you have zero customization in Siebel. It's more likely that you have a very complex project and you increase the complexity of the upgrade because you have so many moving parts and you have to check on test all of them. Again, follow the instructions in the database upgrade guide. This is mandatory reading for everybody involved in the upgrade team. Also, contact Oracle, talk to Oracle support This is just a pointer to the so-called Upgrade Advisor Information Center on Oracle Support. You see the document ID. If you have an Oracle Support account, go there and check the information there and make sure you have contacts with Oracle to help you during your upgrade and maybe also through your system integrator. An example list of typical tasks for preparing the actual database for the upgrade is, of course, taking a backup of the existing database or copying it over to a new instance. And also you might consider upgrading your RDBMS software. So if it's Oracle especially, then consider that your Oracle 11 or 12G database is going out of support in end of 2020 for 12G as announced by Oracle. And you want to be on a supported version of your database as well. So 19C, for instance, at the time of this recording would be the best option to have more years of support ahead of you. And Siebel 19 and subsequently 20 or any other version is certified on Oracle 19C. But that is additional effort you need to plan for and test and keep your DBAs involved. Oracle documents a few parameters to set. It's good to use scripts so you can replicate that and also reset the parameters to original values. You need to prepare some data, probably. For example, think of workflow processes which now are activated if they're active in the repository. So which means just you have those 1800 plus vanilla workflow processes which are active in the repository. And at the end of the upgrade process, you will find those 1800 plus workflow processes active in your production database. If you don't like that idea, think about deactivating or another way of not activating these workflow processes. And this is just one example of steps that you might not be aware of when you decide to upgrade. Also, new Siebel software needs to be installed. The admins and operations personnel that maintains the Siebel servers needs to be trained and aware of the changes in architecture. You need certificates, etc. So training is another natural step in this phase of preparing for an upgrade. Training your developers, training your operations personnel, and training everybody who is involved early on with the new IP17 plus architecture. So Siebel Bookshelf can help. Companies can help to get your team up to speed. The physical step of upgrading the Siebel database schema is performed by the Siebel Upgrade Wizard. So the Siebel Upgrade Wizard performs a series of steps depending on the version you come from and the version you go to. But the usual steps are the schema upgrade, so additive in nature mostly. New tables, new columns are created in the database. Indexes are created and modified, followed by an import of 3 repositories to prepare for the merge into what is called the new customer repository. Also, seed data that is necessary for operating the latest Siebel version is imported, and more steps are executed than listed here. This process is commonly known over the past years as UPG rep or upgrade repository. The Upgrade Wizard itself is a process that keeps track on what has completed successfully. So if in case of any errors that occur, it stops, but it can be restarted after the error or the root cause of the error has been removed. The repository merge itself is a process you can run separately in Siebel tools, but only in a non-IRM setting. So when you come from a very old Siebel version, you actually have to run the application upgrader manually in Siebel tools. So again, this is not very likely, but we keep it here as information for those who come from very old Siebel versions, such as 7.8, for example. And that merge has the goal of evaluating all the changes that have happened over the years by Oracle. So Oracle came from a previous version and produced a new version, and the customer also made changes, and there might be conflicts. So the merge process driven by Siebel tools provides a detailed logging at the attribute level. So the individual properties of each object are traced down and conflicts are reported. So you can, once the merge is complete, you can analyze the merge tables and find the conflicts and resolve them in order to finish the upgrade process. If you run an IRM upgrade, which is any modern innovation pack, let's say from IP15 to Siebel 20.x, this is an accelerated process, so Siebel Tools is launched as part of that process. Of course, you need to run on Windows for that, and performs the repository merge in a slightly different fashion than the non-IRM merge, but nonetheless, it's the same process. And IRM also enhances Siebel tools a bit, so you have even better conflict analysis, identification, and comparison of objects before or after the upgrade. So IRM is the repository merge that runs automatically as part of the UPG rep step. Once the UPG rep step is over and the conflicts are taken care of and acknowledged, or so you have a step there which is not shown in the slides, but shown in the labs, where you actually confirm the conflicts are taken care of. Then you can run what is known as the UPG FIS, the physical schema upgrade, which is a series of steps, much faster than the first step, where the Siebel upgrade wizard synchronizes the logical physical schema again, exports the repository and schema for use in a test or production environment, and renames the repository to finally Siebel repository, which is the outcome of this step. So you now have a Siebel 20.x database schema plus a Siebel repository that has the potential to render into an application you can just launch and start. But now there is, of course, a lot of potential work to be done, and you have to produce that repository and schema export later again in a manual execution of a command line. So after the upgrade process is finished, remember you have changed RDBMS parameters. You need to reset them to normal state. You're going to archive those megabytes of log files that have been produced for later, and you might update the file system or run any other cleanup tasks literally after that. And if you come into the new world of Siebel 17 plus, or even the new world of innovation packs, then you might or might not be involved in a migration from the old world of high interactivity clients, ActiveX based clients only supported in Internet Explorer, to OpenUI. At this time of this recording, OpenUI is more than 7 years on the market, but still, depending on your project, you might still have some users on high interactivity who have never seen OpenUI before. So consider the effort for retraining the end users and the developers on OpenUI, and consider, of course, migration from any ActiveX-based integration or extension you wrote to OpenUI. Review your browser scripts, which are still supported in OpenUI, but should be reduced to an absolute minimum or 0 if possible. You could phase that out into a later phase after the upgrade, but consider your browser script to be obsolete, not necessarily defunct, but definitely you should not write any new browser script once you are on OpenUI. ActiveX controls must be migrated to DISA, the desktop integration Siebel agent. That's a good place to do any, if you need them at all, do any desktop integrations. But it's now, the language used is now Java, so there might be a considerable gap in your developers. Also, there could be issues with custom web templates that are a bit too complex and just to automatically migrate to the new syntax and into the database. So you need to work on that, figure out what could go wrong or what went wrong, and fix it. Also, considerable amount of time will be used for testing. So of course we cannot go other than a full regression testing, so including the functionality, the user interface, and also all the server-side processes, batch processing, and EAI interfaces and infrastructure. So, and not stopping there, actually, the performance test has to be carried out very thoroughly because, believe it or not, the performance after an upgrade could go down and not up because of changes in indexes or changes in database content. So be very careful and conduct those tests very thoroughly, and don't make assumptions, and don't push it back as the last phase. So you have to find out these issues during the development upgrade at best and then fix them before you go into test or production. The testing phase also goes in parallel with end user training, maybe preparing end users or pilot users for pilots of the test systems so they can inspect how the new Siebel 20 environment will work and help you with decisions. So as a result of the whole process, of the whole upgrade, we have an application or multiple applications that you can launch into, and they combine the customizations with the new standard Siebel functionality in terms of data, metadata objects, and the UI. So, for example, if you came from high interactivity Siebel Call Center, you now run in Siebel OpenUI, Siebel Call Center, the new standard from Oracle, and including all your customizations, your custom fields and applets, etc. So the customizations are preserved in terms of data model or logic or UI, and the data is moved by the process into the new data model if necessary, and all repository-based customizations are, of course, preserved, and the development upgrade process, including the manual steps to fix things, ensure that all the business components and business services, etc., work again. So what tools do we have that help us during the upgrade process? So we have already discussed the database configuration wizard and upgrade wizard, which perform the grunt work of running these hour-long processes of subsequently modify the databases. And there is a great amount of log files written by these processes, and the log parser utility is a very interesting helper, as it can read all these log files and compile the information into a human readable form of HTML files. So you see some screenshots here. So the log parser is actually can parse any logs produced by the database upgrade wizard. Then if you run the log parser on top of a test or production upgrade log folder, then it also produces an XML file which you can use to load into the upgrade tuner utility. And the upgrade tuner allows you to identify slow running processes during table creation, index creation, or data updates, known as the zero-row SQLs, which run for a long time, but then only affect 0 rows because of there's so much data in the table, but the where clause, etc., reduces it to a 0-row statement. So you could think of skipping the statement in its entirety during the production upgrade, but you need to be sure to run that test upgrade on a real copy of production to be sure you can really skip that statement. And you make these changes in a graphical way and then save the driver files for the upgrade, for the final production upgrade. So they do not include these statements and subsequently run faster. So that is the purpose of the upgrade tuner, to actually tune the final production upgrade with information taken from upgrading, running a test slash production upgrade process on a copy of production at best. Be sure to talk to Oracle if your upgrade proves to be very slow, even when you first encounter it on development database or later during test and production runs. Then make sure Oracle is involved to help you with any performance issues, or talk to your system integrator to help you, because most of the time some changes can be made and the process can be sped up very heavily. We mentioned these additive schema changes, so you might want to consider speeding up the production environment or reducing the downtime of the production upgrade by applying the additive changes, the new tables and columns and index changes during production hours, but maybe during windows which you can afford to run those heavy lifting steps on the database. This slide is a sample checklist, so please take with a grain of salt. Your project might differ, so you might have different amount, different sequence of steps. But the typical steps during the planning phase of an upgrade, so to speak, this is what we discussed in this presentation, is taking inventory of any of your customizations, identify problem areas early, such as ActiveX being replaced by OpenUI, etc., browser scripts, web templates, customizations, make a catalog of all your interfaces, data volumes, and etc., BI publisher reports, for example, etc. It's not a complete list. Assess the level of effort, which of course requires expertise and experience, which you can get from Oracle or partners. Especially if you have a very complex upgrade, make sure that you have a general idea how long each step will take, because you are in the very insecure area of the planning phase. We don't know until the end of the project how long it will take. Get information from locations just as the Siebel Hub, Siebel Bookshelf, or My Oracle Support. Make sure you distribute that information to the team, make sure that knowledge is transferred, including organizing training for the implementation team, such as the Siebel 2020 workshop provided by the Siebel Hub. And also manage change and user adoption very early, prepare the user community for the changes they're facing, especially when you migrate to OpenUI, or introduce any new features from Siebel that they haven't seen yet. Also, a mandatory deliverable of this planning phase is a planning document of some sorts, where you identify each of the steps for each environment, development, test, production, identify the necessary steps on, for example, upgrading your Oracle database, upgrading to another operating system version, or entirely different platform. For example, you want to use the latest Windows servers rather than the old version supported with the old Siebel. So again, this is just an example checklist, and in real life, in your project, this might be a longer list or even a different list. So in this recorded version of this workshop, we will have no hands-on labs, as it says on the slide, but you will see, you will be watching videos where you see a environment, or actually two environments, being completely upgraded from Siebel 15 to Siebel 20.x. The environments we have been using for these labs are a Windows server. We have an Oracle 12c database. We loaded a Siebel 15.0 vanilla schema and seed data into that database, applied some sample customizations which you can follow through, and we provide installers and show a complete installation cycle of IP17 Plus and a current update on top. So these videos will allow you to relive a real-life upgrade with IRM from 15 to IP17 Plus with the current update on top, so 20.x in at the time of this recording, and we will upgrade a development and a production environment. So that's it for this first chapter in our Siebel upgrade workshop. So we learned about the changes coming with Siebel 2020, and we discussed the steps and things that you need to know about the Siebel upgrade process of development, test and production environments. Thank you very much.